A brazen tourist thought her boldness and wealth gave her the right to mock tradition. She crossed the line, literally, grabbing a ceremonial piece of the Queen's Guard's uniform, expecting silence and submission. But what happened next left the crowd speechless. His measured response was so powerful it turned the tide of the day and left her in a moment she'd never forget. Let's start from the beginning. The day was bright and bustling in London, with the city exuding its characteristic charm. The sun, peeking through scattered clouds, cast golden rays on the historic grounds of Buckingham Palace. The golden gates stood tall, their intricate designs catching the light, symbolizing the monarchy's grandeur. The air was alive with the chatter of tourists, the clicks of camera shutters, and the occasional laughter of children chasing after pigeons. The rhythmic clop of horses' hooves on cobblestones added an element of timelessness to the scene. At the center of this lively tableau stood a member of the Queen's Guard. He was a striking figure of discipline and tradition, his tall, lean frame accentuated by the scarlet tunic with gleaming gold buttons. The bearskin hat perched on his head added an air of grandeur, making him an iconic symbol of British heritage. His dark eyes were focused on an invisible horizon, his expression a mask of steely resolve. His skin was sun-kissed, and a subtle sheen of perspiration glinted on his brow, though his stoicism betrayed no discomfort. Among the crowd, a woman in her mid-30s moved with an air of self-assured audacity. She was of medium height, her blonde hair styled into carefree waves that framed her sharp, confident features. Her piercing blue eyes sparkled mischievously, scanning the scene as if seeking a target for her antics. She wore a bright yellow sundress that seemed to demand attention, paired with oversized sunglasses perched atop her head. Her wrist jingled with silver bracelets, and she clutched a designer handbag that screamed opulence. "Is this all they do? Stand like statues all day?" she called out, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of the crowd. Heads turned, and murmurs of amusement and disapproval rippled through the throng. The guard stood motionless, impervious to her taunts, embodying the unyielding discipline of his post. Her initial provocations were light-hearted. Exaggerated salutes and mock expressions aimed to elicit laughter from the crowd. Some chuckled, others shook their heads, but the guard remained a steadfast figure of composure. The air grew tense as the woman's antics became increasingly daring, setting the stage for the inevitable clash. As the day wore on, the golden light of the sun bathed the palace grounds in a warm glow, heightening the scene's vibrancy. The woman, emboldened by the attention she garnered, grew bolder with each passing moment. She sauntered closer to the guard, her heels clicking sharply against the cobblestones. "Let's see if he's even real," she announced with a grin, her voice tinged with mockery. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some laughed nervously, while others exchanged uneasy glances. Phones were raised, their lenses capturing every second. Her next move was more intrusive. Leaning in, she waved her hand inches from the guard's face, studying him with exaggerated curiosity. "Are you alive under there?" she teased, her tone playful yet brazen. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a blend of amusement and disapproval. The guard's uniform, pristine and polished, seemed to shine brighter under the scrutiny, a testament to his dedication. Her audacity reached its peak when she reached out and tugged at the tassel on his bearskin hat. A collective gasp rippled through the spectators. The guard's response was swift and deliberate. With a sharp motion, his hand rose, pointing directly at her. His voice, deep and authoritative, broke through the noise. "Step back, ma'am. Maintain the line." The shift in the crowd's mood was palpable. Applause and cheers erupted from some, while others shook their heads at the woman's behavior. Her smirk faltered for a moment, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. "Relax, it's just a joke," she retorted, her voice lacking its earlier confidence. But the guard's unwavering stance spoke volumes, his silent authority resonating with the spectators. As afternoon melted into evening, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the palace grounds. The woman, despite the growing disapproval of the crowd, seemed determined to push the boundaries. With a defiant glance, she stepped over the white line, marking the boundary she was forbidden to cross. The collective intake of breath from the onlookers heightened the tension. She reached out and tugged at the ceremonial shoulder piece of the guard's uniform, her audacity now bordering on disrespect. The guard's reaction was immediate. With a single, purposeful step forward, he closed the gap between them, towering over her with an imposing presence. His dark eyes locked onto hers, conveying a mix of authority and resolve. "Ma'am, you have crossed the line," he said, his voice measured but commanding. "Return to your place immediately." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the distant cooing of pigeons. The woman's confident facade cracked. She glanced around, suddenly aware of the judgmental stares directed her way. From the crowd, a child's voice rang out, "Mommy, why is she being mean to the soldier?" The innocent question hung in the air, cutting through the tension like a knife. The woman's cheeks flushed with embarrassment as she hesitated, unsure of her next move. The guard's demeanor shifted slightly. Bending down, he retrieved a small teddy bear that had slipped from the hands of a nearby child. With a nod, he handed it back, his stern expression softening for a brief moment. The crowd erupted into applause, their support for the guard now unequivocal. The woman stepped back across the line, her earlier bravado replaced by visible discomfort. The sun had set, leaving the sky painted in deep hues of orange and purple. The palace grounds were illuminated by the warm glow of streetlights, their light reflecting off the gilded gates. The crowd had thinned, but those who remained were abuzz with conversation about the day's events. The woman stood apart, her earlier defiance replaced by a subdued demeanor. She fiddled with the strap of her handbag, avoiding eye contact with those around her. The guard, now back at his post, moved with precision as he adjusted his uniform. The clink of buttons and the rustle of fabric were the only sounds in the hushed air. His expression remained impassive, but there was a quiet dignity in his bearing that commanded respect. A few remaining onlookers began to clap, their applause swelling in volume. "Thank you for your service," someone called out, and others echoed the sentiment. The woman, her face a deep shade of red, slipped away into the dispersing crowd. Meanwhile, videos of the incident had already made their way to social media, quickly gaining traction. Comments poured in, praising the guard's discipline and condemning the woman's behavior. As the last of the spectators departed, the guard stood alone, a steadfast figure against the backdrop of a city that never slept. The world moved around him, chaotic and ever-changing, but he remained a symbol of resilience and tradition, a reminder that some values are worth preserving.